How's it going, folks? CR here. I'm going to be responding to some comments from ChckMcn. I'm going to start off with the last one. You say, oh, LOL, of course, YouTube won't let me criticize any fucking thing about multiculturalism. Oh, that's funny because I'm pretty sure I've criticized multiculturalism myself. I've said, I think on a few videos that, when two cultures are diametrically opposed or too widely varied, it is not always a good idea to have them in close proximity. They're not going to get along. This is something that Jinx would agree with too, and I think you know that. And you know what? YouTube so far hasn't taken down a video of mine for that yet. But let's continue on this. We continue on to say, yeah, why don't you pull out that permission slip to own guns out of your pocket and tell me where the Constitution says you need it? You know what, Chick? I'm very well aware our Second Amendment, among other parts of our Constitution, have been and are continuing to be violated. But since you want to pull that card out, let's talk about where the very first hatchet to the Second Amendment came. More importantly, who were the people that did it and why they did it? Well, it is very simple. The people who did it did so because they thought a certain race of Americans were inferior and shouldn't be owning guns, among other things. The very first gun laws in this country were designed to prevent blacks from owning firearms. You know that permit to purchase a handgun requirement in North Carolina? Yeah, that happened before our NFA of 1934, and it was specifically done to prevent blacks from owning firearms. These were people who agreed with you. So don't come at me with that. You say our freedom is gone. There's hardly any Americans left to maintain a free society. Well, I can go back to a previous comment. In fact, I am, where you pretty much said the only thing you care about politically is nationalism. Everything else is petty disagreements, and that you would settle for socialism over open borders supporting CivNat. You know what? I don't know who you're talking about is supporting open borders. I don't support open borders. Our conversations we've had, I've never supported open borders. Jinx, one of the people you're arguing with right now, doesn't support open borders either. Now, we may disagree on the fine points of immigration. We've never really gotten too much in depth. Suffice to say that neither of us think it's reasonable or feasible for an outright ban on immigration in this country. And I've reached out to you and said, okay, are there any fine points in the law that you need to change? Are there any major flaws in the law we need to change aside from an outright ban on immigration? And you haven't directly answered the question, though you've come about it by asking me questions like, do you think a Japanese an American citizen can move to Japan and become Japanese. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much the closest thing to an answer I'm going to get on that. You know. But then you go on in this comment, you know, after the open border supporting ChckMcn and say, we can come back from a shitty economy. It's people like you who are going to permanently destroy us. Yeah, it's kind of funny because you just said you'd support socialism, and then you go on to sit there and go back down, and you're complaining about our loss of freedoms and about how we can't even open a business without a lawyer and a ton of money to meet 80,000 market regulations. Now, I agree with you that our regulations serve to support big business. I mean, they put an unfair advantage out there for big business. But you just said you would take socialism in order to have your white ethno-state. So, I mean, don't sit there and point the finger at me or Jinx or anybody else over our freedom being lost. You know, especially considering the fact you've said to Jinx at least a few times that there's at least some of his freedom you want to curtail. You know, yeah, there are Americans that will stand up for freedom, will stand up for our Constitution, but, you know, I agree there's not many of us left, but you're not one of them. You seem to be very content with exchanging your freedom in exchange for a white ethno-state. You're one of the types of people, you're one of the types of Americans who doesn't want freedom. You just want people to live within the bounds of what you consider as acceptable. Beyond that, it seems like you have no desire for actual freedom. You know? And then you go down back to the 80,000 market regulations in this comment, and you ask me, you know why? And you give the answer, because only white Americans value liberty over security. Blatantly false statement, but in the previous comment, again, you said you would accept socialism, you know, for an ethno-state as opposed to freedom in a state where everybody's rights are recognized here, from what it seems, you know. So, again, that part is not true. In fact, some of the people there are people who are white, and they don't share your views, but they seem to have a desire to erode our freedom too. Now, on the inverse to that, there are blacks, Hispanics, that value their freedom. There are blacks and Hispanics on, let's say, the Second Amendment issue, who also believe every gun law is an infringement, which it is. You want to talk about people who aren't Americans who value freedom? Well, think about the Cuban that gets on a life raft and travels 90 miles across the ocean just to get to Miami, just for that promise of freedom. Cubans aren't white or American, but yet you have some of them that are willing to do that, and it seems as if they value their freedom over security. you go on to say culture isn't a fad. Well, that statement's only partially true. There are cultures that are more than just a fad, but fads are a part of culture. You see, you've got the culture that stays more of a long time, the more, the culture with the longevity, and then you have your short-term culture. So, yes, fads are a part of culture. Not all culture is fad. Now, you go on to say, import the third world, become the third world. Well, yes, this is true. However, you don't see me or Jinx or most of us arguing to import the third world. Again, that is not us. That is a handful of SJWs. And you know what? Every time you open your mouth and start talking about race realism and ethno-states, you torpedo any efforts that people like Jinx and I have when it comes to arguing against mass importation of people from third world countries, or for anywhere for that matter. You go on to say there's a reason California streets are filled with tents and human shit now. Well, yes, there is a reason. There's a specific party in power, and if you look at the people running that party in power in California, guess what? The vast majority of them are white people. So, again, another blow to the credence of your little statement, because only white Americans value liberty over security. Yeah, it's been white people running California predominantly, too. And I've explained to you how those predominantly white, almost 100% purely white countries in Europe ain't doing so hot. At least not doing so hot as the vast majority of Americans are. So again, that blows your little theory of, oh, well, white people are the only people who can have a functioning society that's free out of the water. And you're telling me that that's what I want for all of us. You have had the gall to sit here and come on my channel and claim I'm putting words in your mouth and I'm strawmanning you, and you're going to make a statement like that I am arguing in favor of importing the third world en masse. That right there is an untrue statement. So, with that being said, dude, you want to have people actually listen to you and think you're not a complete fucking moron. You need to make an effort to learn, one, about what you're talking about, and two, be consistent and not be a disingenuous prick like you have been doing. So, there you have it.